Ladies and gentlemen, friends from APO member countries and all around the world, greetings from the Asian Productivity Organization Secretariat in Tokyo, Japan. I'm Joshua Lau from the Services Division at the APO Secretariat. The APO is the leading intergovernmental organization tasked to promote productivity, foster innovation, and enhance competitiveness across our 21 member countries, with our headquarters here in Tokyo, Japan. We are here again, this time for a very exciting APO productivity talk. As we gear up our economic activities and improve productivity, even as countries slowly open up and lift travel restrictions, we have the honor to invite the former Deputy Singapore Government Whip and Member of Parliament, Professor Dr. Inderjit Singh, with us. He is currently the Chairman of Intuitive, the enterprise and commercialization arm of Nanyang Technological University, one of the top universities in Asia. He is also the founder of Singapore's earliest unicorn, tech unicorn, UTech, which was valued at over USD $2 billion when he left the company in 2001. So great to have a fusion of both a government leader, a former government leader, a business titan, as well as an academic person with us today. So without further ado, I now pass the floor over to Professor Dr. Inderjit Singh. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you, Joshua, and I want to thank everyone for joining in today. These are indeed very challenging times, and all of us are thinking about how do we get through this tough period, not only survive, but we also have to think about thriving in the future. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. And, I'll share, some of my research that I have done, looked at the environment and based on my own experiences. I will share, how people did it in the past, how companies and individuals survived in the past, and what are the challenges and opportunities for us ahead. So this will be basically, the agenda of my discussion. Let me start by talking a bit about what some of the past global recessions. In the recent time, there were earlier ones, and I'll talk about it later. From the 1970s, we had a few of these. In 74, the stagnation of the Western world caused stagflation. Then the 80 to 84, that's when I graduated, and I found the job market was very tough at that time. In 85, I graduated, and the Asian financial crisis, and so on. You can see the rest. Now we are right in the middle of the COVID-19. In addition to the global crisis, I also experienced the African oil crisis, which happened in 2014, 2015, when the prices dropped and the African countries suffered. And I experienced it because I do business in Africa. So what about COVID-19? I'll come to this later, but let's look at the past experiences. So these are the topics I'm going to go through. I'll look at what were the winning strategies adopted by the survivors during the Great Depression. What lessons can we learn from the past recessions? What is the economic impact around the world? The survival strategies, some suggestions on how we can survive this period, and then the opportunities that all of us can look out for. I always believe that there are always opportunities at whatever time, in good times or bad times. So we should be looking out for the opportunities and don't lament too much on the bad times and look back on what has happened. And now, in the Great Depression, we started in 1929. It was a global issue. The Western countries were very badly hit. It lasted 10 years. Now, I hope that the COVID thing does not last 10 years, but I think it's going to last a few years. And it was caused by the 1929 stock market crash. And there were some reasons because of policy issues and so on. And investors withdrew money from banks. It led to the banking collapse. And then the whole thing, you can see the unemployment had reached at the peak at 25% at the peak, especially in the US. And these are some of the key things. That 11,000 banks failed during that time. Stock market lost value of 90%. Now, we have not seen that kind of 90% loss this time, but at that time was 90% of value was lost. And a huge number of companies had shut down. Prices of goods and services dropped drastically. And you can see the big impact I highlight in red on the chart table on the right is the foreign trade drastically fall. And this we're already seeing some of the trade wars going on, but the COVID thing is accelerated and caused bigger damage. And we'll see huge numbers like this very soon. Now, let me just talk a bit about, this is based on research I did on what happened in 1929 during the Depression. And I give you some examples of winning strategies adopted by those who survived and did well. Now, the movie industries was not a basic necessity, so people did not want to go to movies. How did they attract people? They basically did double features, which means that you get to see 2 movies for the price of 1. So half price. They gave away free gifts, lucky draws. And also, nowadays when you go to the theaters, you buy popcorn. This was started during 1929. Popcorn and all the food used to be sold outside. They came up with this novel idea of bringing popcorns inside the movie theater. They modified their business model. So this is one strategy: pricing, survival, and a modified business model. Procter & Gamble, they actively pursued new marketing avenues, including commercial radio broadcast. At that time, there was a new strategy. These days, new strategies are social media. Radio broadcast was new, and Procter & Gamble did very well for the consumable products. Now, Martin Guitar, again, not a necessity. They decided at that time to use technology to design low-cost quality guitars. People still needed to let out their frustration and their pains, and they needed guitar, but they can afford. So what they did was they actually used technology to go and reduce the cost, so people bought the guitars. Not only that, they used their technology in wood to create wooden jewelry. And so they went not only to use technology to cut costs, but also product diversification. The brewers, people who were selling alcohol, it was banned. It was illegal from 1920 to 33. And what they started doing was they went into what we call a wait-out strategy. And they started selling dairies, milk, meats, and other agricultural products. But they also were allowed to make near beer products. So the root beer was invented during the Great Depression. So product diversification and wait-out strategy. Floyd Bostic Oldham, he made a lot of money because what he did was he kept a lot of cash. So cash is king during this time. And this is a good advice for us to follow also. 3M, they did their strategy was product market fit. At that time, people could not afford to buy new things. And what they did was they used to mend their books, mend their tables and chairs, and they invented the Scotch tape, cellophane tape that helped put broken products together. So R&D and new technology to create a new product market fit. IBM used to sell very expensive machines. At that time, they saw the need for companies who needed to business was becoming more complex, accounting machines to help with complex work processes. And they knew that people could not buy those machines, and they came up with a new business model of leasing machines. So IBM was leasing instead of selling. So technology, new machines to help solve complex problems, and leasing. Chevrolet was actually losing out to Ford for many years. And in fact, Ford was winning 10-1. Every one car that Chevrolet sold, Ford was selling 10 cars. But in spite of the Depression, Chevrolet continued to expand their advertising budget. And by 1931, the Chevy 6, which is one of the cars they produced at that time, took the lead in this field and remained there for next 5 years. So advertising and to create market share. So you don't stop advertising. And Coca-Cola, keep it affordable. So they kept the drink affordable pricing, but also marketing strategy using the Santa Claus to show as a happy Santa drinking Coke. So they use advertising strategy. These are basically some of the strategies that the companies use. They not only survive, but in fact they thrived, and they continue to do very well after the Great Depression. So I'm summarizing here. I will not go through the details. You can read these. So modify business model, product diversification, substitution, technology, pivot your business model, wait out strategy. Cash is king, and this is one of the very important things. I'll come back to that again later. And they did all of these strategies. And when they came out of the Great Depression, customers did not forget them. The consumers remain loyal to such companies, and they're still around today, 100 years later. Now, during the 08 and 09 big global financial meltdown, the companies that did well were those who had a master plan when they entered into the recession. So they did not wait very long. Immediately when they saw the recession coming, they came up with a master plan and they survived. And they focused on operational efficiency, not just cost reduction. Many of us think of just cutting costs, but this is not what they did. They look at operational efficiency. But when you do that, you save costs. And they stayed very closely connected with their customers, same as during the Great Depression years. This is something that you have to continue to do. Don't lose touch with your customers. And they continue to invest in existing and new businesses using R&D, substitute products, brought in assets, so that for future needs, because assets became cheaper, new customers, new market, and they laid off less people during this time, and they retained their talent for an upturn. And I'll talk a bit about it, or what we can do during this COVID time. So again, quite similar to what happened during the Great Depression, the companies that did well adopted these strategies. Now let's talk about COVID. It's a very sad situation. I got some unpleasant pictures here just to give you a snapshot of what's happening around the world. We all are experiencing. There's no country that has been spared. I do business in many countries in Africa. Every one of the countries has been hit by it, and so is all of our country. So we have to find a way to get around this. There's a way, and let's talk about it today. Now I'll quickly go through these numbers. I will not spend too much of time. I think you can later on go back to recording and look at it. Every forecast, every projection is showing a very dire situation. The growth forecast by the IMF shows in 2020 negative 6.1. I think it's never been like that in a long time, and it's a huge problem coming forward, moving forward. And every month you will see new revision of forecasts, and this is the steepest change of forecast that we have seen in history in a long time. Now, I'm also part of the World Business Angel Forum, and I recently conducted a survey globally among startups and small enterprises on the impact that they are seeing. Now, 82% of companies expected their funds will last not more than 6 months without any funding, and 30% felt that their funds will not be enough even for 3 months. 41% reported greater than 50% drop in demand. It's a huge drop. How do you survive that? 63% of startup surveys plan to change their business model. Then you can look on the bottom, the World Economic Forum identified the risk, 500 million people going into poverty, 3% poverty, 3% drop in output, world output, fall of trade by 32%. We saw in the Great Depression was about 60 to 70%, and estimated 40% in foreign direct investment. So countries and companies that depend on this foreign direct investment will be hit very badly. And similarly, the World Bank also is forecasting very tough times ahead. Now I don't want to make everyone feel sad or depressed, but it's important to know what's happening so that we can react with our strategies.
Right.
More data. Again, you can look down here, just a snapshot. What's happening in China, what's happening in US, G6, rest of the world, Brazil. Just a steep drop. Everything shows a steep drop. Again, another data on the global GDP growth from 1995 to 2020. The rate number is coming down. I think that's going to continue to come down, right? So we know that. Now, UNCTAD has estimated the total cost impact on the global economies to be $1 trillion. Now, this is unimaginable. And growth in Asia will stall at 0% in 2020, the worst performance in 60 years, with China's growth declining to about 1.2%, is projected to do that. Now, so what do we do? These are all very tough statistics and data. What can we do? Now, I've put this together for us to look at it individually, look at it as a corporation, as a company, or even as a country. So as I go through some of these things, you have a feel of what I'm saying. Now, first of all, let's look at the Asia-Pacific region. It's home to 60% of the world's population, 4.3 billion. China and India, we know this. And SMEs are the engines of growth of innovation in APEC region. They account for 90% of employment, over half of the workforce in all the APEC countries, economies. So now, I've shared this advice with everyone that it is not a uniform period that we're going to see. We are seeing phase one right now, which is almost, I think at the end of the period that I call the chaos and confusion period, near zero business due to containment measures, due to health, just tackling the health issues. Now, I think we already know there's a wave one, there's a wave two, and how it's going to spread, and how we're going to do a lockdown and circuit breaker in the Singapore case. I think this period is almost over. Now we are entering into phase two, which is now going to last, I think, 2 to 3 years. It could be longer. The Great Depression lasted 10 years, but 2 to 3 years. I heard some projection of 48 months, so 4 years. And And so, we have to be prepared during this. What do you do during this period? It's a period of either survival or collapse. If you do the right things, you survive. If you do the wrong thing, you're going to collapse. So this is a time when businesses restart, go into the second round of shock amid the protected consumer confidence. This is like during the Great Depression. What do you do during this period? And I'll share this in a while. And after we go through these 2 to 3 years or the 48 months, then it will be the period, phase 3, which I call the regrowth of companies that survive and the start of new, stronger startup. Now, during the period of survival and collapse, many companies would have collapsed, many would have survived. Those who survive will regrow, become stronger maybe. But at the same time, just as during the Great Depression, many new companies started during those period of time. So we can expect the same new startups coming up that can even compete with the big companies that exist today. And this is the overall survival plan that I want to say. Go into a survival mode. You all should have already, as business owners, gone into this. I like this saying that my boss used to teach me. In the downturn, there are no heroes, only survivors. So you have to survive. Don't take undue risks. Learn how to survive. And think like a startup. Many of us, when we started our startups, we were not sure whether we were going to survive. We had limited resources. We had limited cash. And what did we do? We were very careful with spending. We hunkered down to survive a period of zero revenues. We focus on net burn rate, bootstrap again, treat cash as king, restructure debts, use government incentives. And you must be prepared to save cash, because I've seen this actually 80% demand drop is already happening among some people. 50 to 80%, I think, is a realistic thing to be prepared for. I would advise, don't lay off as a first action to cut costs. You can do many other things: salary reduction, short work week redeploy, and update your employees regularly on the situations so that they remain loyal. Firing, and then later on when the opportunities come to hire new people, is going to be very difficult. And keep your business cycle short. Don't have long credit periods. Don't have long sales period. This must be short. So buy less, sell faster, buy more, and so on and so forth. Cost is very important. Communicate fast and clearly with all your stakeholders, your customers, your suppliers. Don't forget, everyone is in the same position as you. So if your suppliers are not getting paid on time, talk to them regularly. Talk to the banks. Talk to everyone who is related to you. Strengthen your intrinsic value. Now, if you have to raise money, why should I invest in you? Look at your intellectual property. Look at your customer base. Differentiate yourself. Go into new markets. And if you can increase your intrinsic value, people may invest in you still. Don't forget, VCs are there, investors are there to make money, and they will invest in companies that look very attractive. So make yourself attractive. Stay close to the ground. Listen to your customers. Just as the movie theater people did, like the guitar company did during the Great Depression. Stay close to the ground, understand what their customers want. Price is an issue. Leasing, they cannot buy that. So think about this thing close. Listen to the customers, adapt and change quickly. And more importantly, there's technology all around us. Adopt technology to try to improve your business opportunity and reskill for the future. So think like an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur identifies a problem, uses innovative ways to solve the problem, creates new opportunity using limited resources to produce something valuable and meaningful to society. So this is a master plan for survival. Now let me go through the last part of my talk today on what are the opportunities and strategies for startups and SMEs in the post-COVID new normal. And I've identified a few that we can look at. Now, first of all, we know that not every industry is hit the same way. I have here down summarized in this chart those that are highly hit, like the airlines industry, the gaming industry, retail, hospitality, oil and gas, global shipping. The moderately hit industries of metals, mining, property developers, agriculture, and so on. You can read this, they're all there. The ones that were lowly hit, IT, trading companies, telecoms, all of these services will continue to be useful and they continue to operate, maybe not at a very high rate. But there were positive ones. Companies that benefited, those who on online retail, those who are providing Zoom kind of services, online, teleconferencing, gold mining, gold price has gone up very big. So there are industries that are positive, some are negative, different industries are hit differently. Now, having a look at all of this, what are the opportunities for all of us? Let me go through all of them now. So these are the 8 areas that I've identified. And I'll go through one by one. First, diversification and realignment of supply chains. In fact, I wrote for the South China Morning Post recently about the whole global supply chain is going to get realigned. When the global supply chain was disrupted because China was shut down, many countries, many companies realized that they cannot continue to rely on just one factory of the world, China. So there's going to be a diversification of manufacturing, diversification of the whole supply chain around the world. And this complete realignment is coming. We have to look for opportunity to see where we can fit in and take advantage of this realignment of supply chain that's coming along. There are many things that you can do. For example, in e-commerce, packaging, last mile delivery are important. Huge. People who used to sell food in restaurant plates are now selling in packaging. So this is an example of what I mean by opportunity in this realignment of supply chain. And be where your customers need you. When we wanted to produce disinfectants here in Singapore, we ran out of bottles to pack the product. So this, we had to start look for new sources or to produce our own bottles only to put the disinfectant in. Digitization and technology adoption, this is simple. Technology was already causing a lot of disruption, changing our business model, was already transforming industries, was killing some industries, was killing some companies. This is just going to accelerate. Digitization and technology adaptation will create new platforms that will allow, that's already got people used to a new normal of a digital life. And I'll talk a bit about it next too. And industries that thrive most are the digital industries, as we saw. In fact, some of them, valuations went up very high. Amazon became richer. And so many of those who were in this industry were very lucky. But at the same time, digitalization for most of our Asian countries especially is still at a very low base. And so there's a huge opportunities available for us to look at every single business that we are involved in, that we may not be involved in, to see how we can adopt technology to transform the business models to be able to go and make the businesses adapt quickly and become stronger and tap opportunities faster. I want to share that, Airbnb has more booking than Hilton and Marriott. Hilton, Marriott are the oldest hotel companies, but Airbnb, a new kid in the block, use simple technology, a platform technology, internet. They are able to book more rooms than the big hotels around the world. So this is an example of digitalization and technology adaptation. And doesn't have to be complex technology, can be as simple as what Airbnb did, the software. Third opportunity is Zoomization of all business. Now, Zoom has become a word. Basically, it's an integration of physical and the virtual world. And this has impacted consumer consumption behavior quite significantly. Teleconferencing is widely adopted today across many industry segments. From education, I teach at a university, and I used to do physical classes. I'm now completely online, and so I have online classes. Learning from home is going to be a huge thing, and so we have to look out for those opportunities. Even live streaming is an important new sales channel, even for luxury goods, for real estate, for conferences. These things are all going online. Now, don't forget, even a 94-year-old is using Zoom to see their family and friends. My mother, who's 86 years old, started using Facebook during this period of time. Now, fourth opportunity is local manufacturing. In the Asia Pacific region, in this 2017 data, manufacturing accounts for only 14.5% of the overall GDP. There's a huge opportunity for us to take advantage of this. As I mentioned, there's a realignment of supply chain. We will not be depending on China alone, one factory of the world alone. Every one of our countries can become factories for our own markets. And how can you do it? Today, if let's say in Singapore, we say it's too expensive, but we can solve these problems by robotics, by automation, and we can make manufacturing viable. And I strongly believe in this. And this is what I wrote in the article of the South China Morning Post, that even Singapore can be a manufacturing center for this region. And this will enable us to control supply chains. When you do a manufacturing industry ramp up, you also stimulate other economic activities that support the logistics, the suppliers, the designers who will support the industry. And I see, having mass production in one big factory around the world and shipping it all the way to the other part of the world is going to be a thing of the past. We're going to look at customized manufacturing, personalized manufacturing. With 3D printing, we can print at home close to your home, and if you don't have to ship from one part of the world, produce in one part and ship to the other part. Prototyping is a huge thing. I've suggested Singapore can be the prototyping factory of the world. We can't be the mass production factory of the world, but we can be the prototyping factory of the world because we got lots of technology. Similarly, in your countries, you can also do that. And then, other opportunities in the manufacturing area. Now, the other thing that countries should be focusing on right now is to build up your startup economy, strengthen your startup economy. These are all the startups, and work with the universities and focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. Whether you want to teach it in school, you want to teach it in the universities, you want to help with intellectual property, you want to help fund the businesses. The future jobs are going to come from the startup economy, not from the big industries. Okay, so I think it's important that countries and if you, even for companies, for you to go and look at how you can participate in this startup economy, because there'll be many new ideas, new startups that you can work with, you can partner with, or you can acquire to go and strengthen your own businesses. So countries should focus on the startup economy as an important contributor to GDP. Singapore has started looking at it for a few years. We're going to get more serious about it moving forward, I'm sure. Now, talent, recruitment, and location is huge thing. Today, in the past, when you want to hire the best talent from one part of the world, and you have your HQ is based in New York, you have to bring the person all the way to New York. The person has to live in New York. You have to pay that person very high salary because New York's an expensive place. This is a thing of the past. You can now hire from any part of the world, even in a village. With internet connectivity getting better around the world, you can have the best talent sitting in a village, working from there, costing you a lot less, but able to contribute no less than what a person sitting physically in the office. Many companies have already started doing this. And so as companies, we must start looking at how we can find talent to work for us from wherever they are sitting without any need for them to be in your office. And what does it do? It helps save costs. You don't need physical offices to house them. You don't have to pay them high salaries because they need to pay for high rentals. So this will be a new the opportunity for all of us, and especially for a country like Singapore. We are a small population. We depend a lot on foreign talent. We don't have to bring them here, all of them here. Some will have to come here, but we don't have to bring every one of them down here. Now, education and skills of the future. We never thought that we can do education by sitting at home or online, but today we are learning that it's becoming efficient. We know how to do it, whether it's in school, whether it's in the universities. E-learning opportunities are going to be huge. And I think the way gaming has been very successful in the internet, e-learning has not become as successful. So there are opportunities for us, if you're in the education business, to look at how you can Zoomize your business, your education business, to try to not just recruit students in your own location, but recruit students from any part of the world. And I see a huge disruption coming from many universities around the world. Imagine today Harvard may take 20,000 students per year, and that's it, because that's all they can house in their campus and their professors. If Harvard decides to offer their online program and they start taking 100,000 students per year or 200,000 per year, some online, sometime they visit. Imagine what's going to happen to the rest of the universities, because all the students will be going for Harvard and they will not go for the universities that does not have that skills or cannot compete with Harvard. Many universities may shut down. So this is going to see we're going to see a big realignment down here. The other thing is, education in the universities is not just for fresh undergraduates. It's going to be a lifelong program. At different parts of our life, at whatever age we are, we're going to have to pick up new skills for the new jobs that we're going to have to do. And the universities will actually, their core customers are going to be this skill for workers rather than education for young undergraduates. Young undergraduates will have a basic education like a liberal arts or liberal engineering type of education, but the specialization happens when we during our working life. Finally, real estate. If let's say you're going to work from home, less people come to the office. When I'm at home, I'll eat at home. My recreation will be at home. I'll have to redesign. The whole real estate industry is going to go through a complete restructuring. I've got some of the points you can read down there. I'll not go through the detail in the interest of time. But the real estate sector is going to be completely disrupted. And I think it's good, especially in Singapore, because real estate cost is the one that kills many companies. Rentals are high, and businesses pay so much of rental that they can't make profit, and they end up paying less to their workers. Now, with rentals costing less, they can pay more to their employees and get out of their employees. All right. So what I want to end by saying that, don't be over pessimistic in these bad times. There are opportunities all time. In every crisis, there are opportunities. You must find a way to secure a place in the world trading system that's completely disrupted. Create great jobs for future generations, which is going to be the responsibility of many governments. Build new businesses to meet the changing customer demands and compete differently. Business as usual will not work, you will fail. Okay, so thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Dr. Inderjit Singh, for the extremely insightful presentation. As a matter of fact, we actually had two questions, and the first two questions are, can we have a copy of your presentation material from Liz in Indonesia, as well as from India? Please share a copy of your presentation. We really like it. So
Okay.
I just want to say that we really appreciate it. So with your permission, we will be able to share your presentation to our viewers all around the world.
Yes, yeah, please go ahead, yeah.
Thank you.
Apologize, I rushed through, so you can read it, and listen to the video again later on. I wanted to spend time on the Q&A, that's why I rushed through my presentation.
No, that's all right, Dr. Inderjit Singh. Thank you so much. At this point, I want to give some airtime to some of the people who like to send their regards to you. So we have people from Singapore, and they are sending their regards to you, Professor Singh. And also from Kwa Cheng Wei, greetings from Singapore. Thank you, Joshua and Professor Inderjit. And of course, we have Mr. Yi Zhenzhong, our former Singapore nominated Member of Parliament. Hi, Inderjit. Hi, Joshua. This is Yi Zhenzhong here. So before I continue with the live session, I would like to just ask some questions from our viewers. Yi Zhenzhong has a question for you. Mr. Yi Zhenzhong said, I've read Dr. Inderjit's SCMP article on smart manufacturing yesterday. I agree that we need to focus on innovation and enterprise, that Singapore needs to figure out how to produce innovative products and to sell overseas. However, I think he's using the context of Singapore. Our research is too high level and raw. There's a lack of bridge to make real products that can be global winners. So how likely is the government willing to listen to Dr. Inderjit's advice to refocus on manufacturing? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Zhenzhong. I was in Parliament with him, when he was there. Now, this is, in fact, I think it's. We heard our Minister of Trade Industry talking about the world has changed. I mean, for the first time, I looked at the Singapore government saying that they themselves are lost at what to do. So I think they should be looking at every potential opportunity to do this. Now, in my article, I talked about Singapore government having spent $61 billion in the last 30 years or so on R&D, and most of it was on basic research. And very good ideas have come out, and basic research is also necessary for us. But we have not been able to translate the research into enterprises, which is good. And enterprises are going to create jobs. So commercializing the research is going to be very important. And that's why I focus on innovation and enterprise, that now we should be looking at how, we don't just finish the research and put it in a shelf, but take that research and convert it to product and services that we can use. Now, Singapore is a small market, so we can work with all our neighbors here to bring some of the technologies that we already have that will be useful to many of them. So, for example, even in agriculture, we can research in the seeds, that are used to do good products, and these then can be used by anyone around the world. So there are areas that we already have this kind of research that's being done that we can bring out. So the question is how, now I mentioned that that we could do before these are brought to production or to all the other countries for mass production. I say that we can do prototyping down here. And I give you an example. I came across a company where there was a professor from our university that had used 32 patents, created a great company, but he brought these ideas and he started a company in Shanghai. It's okay. China is a good market, but we also could have done that in Singapore if, let's say, we have put in a bit more resources, funding for this kind of next stage financing, for us to do the prototyping down here and still bring it to China later on. At least we keep the core competency in Singapore. So I think it's doable. The investments are not great. Of the 61 billion, just give us 20%, and I think we'll be able to create a few more unicorns like what I did in 1998.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Inderjit Singh, and I hope that answers the viewer's question. I would like to move up now towards more towards a macroeconomic level. So the macroeconomic level will be like, as they say, in every crisis, there's always great opportunities ahead. So you have graciously mentioned 8 specific opportunities for all SMEs leaders to heed. If you could only choose 3 opportunities, which one would you choose?
Okay, I think the first one is the whole global supply chain is disrupted. It's going to get more and more disrupted. The Japanese government has, I think if I'm not wrong, put up $3 billion to encourage Japanese companies that have factories in China to bring back to onshore. In the past, it was too expensive in China, like it's expensive in Singapore, but today with robotics and with automation, we can solve many of the cost issues that we could not solve in the past, and with AI and so on. So I think, so first opportunity is realignment of supply chain. I think you should focus on this. And if, as a company, look for the space where you can add a lot of value and try to find this space before others find it, and that will be your winning formula. So don't think that the supply chain will remain the same. It's just going to completely break up, and new supply chains, regional supply chain, smaller level, higher level supply chains will come about that may be connected or not connected, and find a place. So that's number one. Number two is technology and digitization. This is actually a very important strategy. Many companies, Airbnb or even Uber, it is not a magic. It was the taxi companies could have done Uber, right? I mean, so because the technology is not rocket science, but they adopted technology and they transform a business model. So this is something that every business should look at. How you can use the technology that is available, and if you don't have that technology, work with institutions that do that, like our universities and other research institutions. Look for those that can help improve your business. I'm quite sure you can find something that's going to work for you. So that's number two. And I will add that I'll add Zoomization of your business there, physical and virtual world. This will be the new formula for the future. That's why Amazon prices shot up during this time, because of the supply chain, the retailing that they did. But the other area is going to be talent. I think this is another area. How you for yourself, new ways of identifying new talent. You'll be surprised that the kind of activities that are going on in the smaller cities around us. And there are a lot of interesting things, and you can tap those opportunities down there, not just the market, but also the talent that's available around us. So these are the 3 that I would say we should be looking at.
Right. Right now, I have SMS. I have an SMS from Dr. Kamal in the Philippines. So please allow me to just show the question. So from the Philippines, Dr. Kamal, how should tourism business respond to the absence of overseas tourists to keep their business? So any views on that?
Yeah, I think this is the tourism business. Unfortunately, is really badly hit. And I think one thing is for sure, we will not see them coming back to our shores anytime soon. In Singapore, I think once we found out the way to contain, so safe distancing and all the hygiene measures and so on, Singapore encouraged staycations, local tourism. So I think and Philippines is a big country compared to Singapore, and you have areas where where can be attractive. That in fact, even as a Singaporean, we have not visited all the places of attraction, and I'm sure it's the same in Philippines. So I think I would focus on local tourism, and then use technology. How do you reach out to them? Use technology to reach out, social media, to whet their appetite for them to want to come and do. And then you have to do something like what the movie theaters did during the Great Depression. 2 for the price of 1. Free gifts and so on. So in your industry, maybe something else. What else will they gain from tourism? I think so. You just have to look at across other industries and see how you can bring this to go and support your tourism industry, and then and hopefully when the world lifts the travel bans, you'll get back your tourism. But take this opportunity to prepare for that period too, the phase 3, when everything is normal. But you have to just survive in this phase 2 by doing some of these things. And one of it could be a wait out strategy. So tourism, if let's say it's not possible at all, what did the brewers do during the Great Depression? They went into dairy products, they went into agriculture products, and they went into root beer, something similar. So so please do a wait out strategy, and until the time is right for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Inderjit. There's another question from a Mr. Michael Chong. So Michael Chong asks, in labs to market, there's actually this valley of death in startup speak, and startup parlance. So how can SMEs in the Asia Pacific contribute to bridge this valley to create new products and markets? Dr. Inderjit Singh, you talked about prototyping. Rapid prototyping is one way, as you have mentioned. Are there any other ways?
Yeah, this is something that we are trying to do in NTU to NTU TIF. Our NTU TIF is an innovation company for NTU. What we want to do now in this next few years, because we realize that the need is to work with SMEs and to identify, what areas that we can help them to improve their business models, and then identify the technologies for them, because the SME may not know what is available, because there's lots of it available, and so we want to bridge that gap. And to go and identify for this particular industry, what is it that could help you to do better, could help you to go and link up with regional markets, let's say. So this is something that I think we will need what I call a middleman, and governments could play that role too. Universities can play that role. So and in fact, the SMEs, I would encourage you to go and look out for these opportunities of technologies and ideas. That the SMEs can be if you're already a company that's operational right now, you are the best suited to do a prototyping yourself rather than a brand new prototyping factory. So take the opportunity to see what is the new supply chain looking like and what is your role down there. But don't just do the same old thing that requires a lot of cheap labor, and so don't do that. Go and see what technology you can use to go and strengthen your business model and your business processes.
Related to the question above just now, there's another Colin Gunn. Colin Gunn from, I think it's Dr. Colin Gunn from Singapore. So how can 3D printing be more widely used by SMEs in manufacturing to create more innovative products that are of higher quality and lower cost? Just now you were talking about customized mass production, so high customization and low volume. Could you answer that, please?
So in fact, that's going to be it. I mean, in the past, when Ford produced their car, it was a black car for everyone, same model, and you got no choice. But today you can actually almost customize your car, but it takes a bit longer. With 3D printing, you can actually now do it, you can design it wherever you want. I can design it sitting in America, and I can send the design through blockchain into Thailand, into Bangkok, and then Bangkok can have a 3D factory that's printing the product for me. Okay, so everything can be transferred. So this, I think, is the concept that I'm looking at. So we can 3D print everything. Now, one of the projects that I'm going to work on with one of the professors in NTU is to use fish collagen and print meat.
Wow.
Okay, so we're already looking at impossible food, right? Vegetable protein into meat, but we can do many other things like that. So 3D printing is going to make the difference. That you can print meat, but you can print products, and you can print a whole bunch of things. And again, please, we have to move with times. One of the reasons why we think it's not going to work is because we did not see a machine like that before. But today, technology is developing at such a rapid pace that you'll be surprised that if you have an idea of what you want to produce, you can work with some of these 3D machine people, or even with the universities or research institutions, and they may be able to design a machine that suits your need, that can do it more effectively and at lower cost and with higher quality.
Right. And as a matter of fact, you know that additive manufacturing is one of the pillars for Industry 4.0, as mentioned by a lot of consultancy firms, including BCG. Boston Consulting
I want to say for those of you out there, when I started UTech in 1998 as a contract manufacturer for semiconductor companies, I bought many machines, was my investment, and that was a service that I provided to manufacture. I see a huge industry still available out there for a 3D manufacturing subcontractor or contract manufacturer. No one has done it in a big scale yet. It's a huge opportunity. what I used to buy a machine that will do millions of DRAM products, but you can buy a different machine for different products, and you can immediately tap the opportunity. I was thinking of doing this business, but I'm too busy with other things. So for those of you listening out there, go and start that operation. You'll find a lot of value, and especially with distributor manufacturing right now, with no more localized manufacturing, huge opportunities for each one of you in your own country, in your own cities.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have from Dr. Inderjit Singh about this. So do take a look at this extreme niche opportunity that's available in this COVID-19 crisis. I would like to now pose another question. Let me clarify. Mr. Yi Zhenjong was our former non-constituency member of parliament. Just like I stated, he was a nominated member of parliament. My apologies. So he was our former non-constituency member of parliament for Singapore. So his question reads, next question, Singapore construction productivity is a third or less than that in Australia, Japan, and other developed countries. We rely on low-skilled migrant workers. How likely will the government make it more viable for locals? I think we can expand it out beyond the Singapore context, because there are also other countries like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and even I think Japan that relies heavily on low-skilled migrant workers. So the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, so good question, Zhenjong. In fact, when we were in Parliament, I think you spoke about it. I also spoke about this, about the need for productivity-driven growth. And so for many years, actually in the initial years of industrial development in Singapore, and most of the other tigers in Asia, they focus on productivity-driven growth. Then there came a time, I think, in about a 10 to 15-year period, in the case of Singapore, the government adopted a growth at all cost strategy. They wanted to grow quickly, and then they basically just focus on input factors. And basically input factors mean bringing a lot of labor, cheap labor, to drive growth. And that is the reason why the construction industry left behind. I want to say that, in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, the Singapore government and many of us, it was a PS, the Spring, which was the institution that looked at productivity. I was in that organization at the board, and we were looking at how we can improve the productivity of every sector. So construction was one, and we call it Construction 21. Retail was one, Retail 21, and SME was another, SME 21. Our 21st century strategies for this were all productivity driven. Then we got caught up with growth at all cost policy. We dropped that. So that's the reason why we are so far behind the curve compared to Japan, Australia, and many other countries in terms of labor productivity. Can we continue like that? I would say that there was a mistake made by the Singapore government in the past of dropping the productivity goals and just focusing on growth without worrying about the future impact. That era is gone. And if we do not change ourselves, our economy may not last long. So, Zhenjong, to answer your question, they have no choice left now. They have to go back and focus on productivity. And this is the same for every country around us. There's so much technology. Technology is cheap. You can use cheaper than before, and you can adopt that to do things more productively and move your workers to the higher value-added activity. So skills training is very important to complement the productivity, that everyone do better quality job, better paying jobs. And I think in Singapore, we just have no more choice left. If we fail to make this transformation, now we have been forced, COVID has forced us into this position. If we don't do it, Singapore will not be as prosperous as it was in the past. So we have no choice, and I think the government will do it.
Right. Thank you, Professor. Can you move a little bit closer to your mic, because you are a bit far away, so there's some feedback. Yes. So allow me to pose another question from one of our viewers who has SMS to us. Renowned Polish-British writer Joseph Conrad famously stated, "It is only those who do nothing that will make no mistakes." So what do you think of this when SMEs just wish to observe and stay put? Because very naturally, with this crisis and with all these challenges, people just want to adopt a wait-and-see attitude. What do you think of this? Any advice for SME leaders in Asia Pacific?
A very good, very good saying. Now, of course, you can do nothing and don't make mistakes, and you miss opportunities will pass you by. And so sometimes people, you are afraid to make mistake. You don't try. If you don't try, you're not going to be able to tap the opportunities, and someone will tap the opportunities that's down there, that's ahead of you. So, because we are afraid to make mistakes and we don't try new things, we don't adopt new technology, we will actually end up someone else, a newcomer, a disruptor that will come and eat your cake. So that's for the fear of making mistake. If you don't make the move, you'll be left behind. So this is a very important thing. I want to say also that business as usual, what worked in the past is not going to work in the future. The world has changed. So many companies, even many countries, relied on old models, business model, old economic models. This is all also not going to work. So we have to now be thinking about what is the new normal. And among us, individuals, companies, and countries who can identify what is the future new normal going to look like, we will be the winners. If we are afraid of making mistakes, we are afraid of changing, the world will pass us by.
Right. Very well said. Thank you so much. Professor Inderjit Singh, we have come almost to the end of this APO productivity talk. I want to give you some airtime, and perhaps you could conclude with some concluding and final remarks and advice to our SME leaders around the Asia Pacific, and let us know what are your final thoughts.
Okay. Now, I think, I want to come back to one of my original things that I said was that the tough times are very tough out there, and especially SMEs, and you go back to think about how you came to where you are today as a startup. You started from nothing, and you achieved something, right? So think yourself as a startup again on how you're going to survive this thing. There will be lots of challenges, but also there'll be lots of opportunities. But I think, especially for countries like Singapore, we are a very small market. We have to get out of our comfort zone. And it's the same for any one of us in any other country. The opportunities around us, 4.2 billion people in the region that will be potential consumers. And we know that this is going to be the big growth region. And the opportunities will be available. Even in Southeast Asia, if you look at it, it's a huge, 600 million market. And some of us may have the market, some of us may have the talent, some of us may have the technology. How can all of us get together as a community to bring what value all of us can add to create success for all of us? So I think this is something that's is important, especially in a region like ours, to be thinking about to survive collectively. How can we work together? And I see a lot of opportunities down here. I give you an example. I visited a few Southeast Asian countries. There were people who were working on farming, improving their farming output, and they needed to monitor their crops using technology, but they didn't have the technology. And I look back in my university, we have great IoT technology that we can deploy in those countries, and they can immediately use it to monitor their farms. So, they did not know, but so if by working together, we could help each other and we could create opportunities. So I don't despair. It's going to be tough. Look at my survival master plan. The notes will come to you. Try to follow those as quickly as possible, but also look for opportunities. I want to say that United Test and Assembly Center, which was mentioned earlier, I started that in 1998. That was the Asian financial crisis. And in 1997, my brothers and I started our TriStar Electronic, which does business in Africa today. That was 1997 financial crisis. In 2001 was post.com crash, and also was the after September 11, the world was in despair. I started Infinity Solution, which is a Silicon Valley-based company, and I sold it in 2015. So I started most of my companies in bad times. I saw opportunities when others saw failure. So please look at it again, look afresh at things. I'm sure you'll find opportunities to also do well in this moving forward. Survive first, do well later. Thank you.
Survive first, do well later. Very well. As what Dr. Inderjit said, disruptions by Industry 4.0 technologies and trade wars has already caused us to reinvent the world that we live in. The COVID-19 pandemic has only accelerated the changes, including on digital transformation. So this path to recovery will be likely to be long and painful for the SMEs around the Asia Pacific, but hope is there. There's always a sliver of hope and a sliver of opportunity. And we have learned at least 8 specific opportunities from Professor Inderjit Singh today. And we will be passing the PowerPoint presentation to our viewers in good time. So the APO will host more productivity talks featuring different resource persons and guest speakers with the aim of building economic resilience and business continuity throughout our APO member countries. and its combined population of 3 billion people. So continue to join our series of APO Productivity Talks, where we feature world-leading experts and guest speakers like Professor Inderjit to talk about business continuity, economic resilience, and strategies to survive not just in the new normal, but also in the next normal. So till then, Professor Inderjit Singh, please take care of yourself and God bless. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. See you in the next productivity talk.